I told Europeans 20 years ago that this was going to happen. In Deutschland verboten, banned in Germany, the film Citizen Vigilante. Here's the trailer.
The truth is this. You are all being used.
The vigilante citizen is delivering a brand of justice that some believe the authorities have failed to provide, targeting both criminals and those in power accused of allowing crime to flourish unchecked.
There's been a lot said about me, so I thought you should hear directly from me. I'm here to...
The state, court, police. See, you think that they've failed you, but they haven't. No, they only exist to control you.
Do you want justice?
Yes.
Let's get some fresh blood. You walk down the street and you get stabbed or robbed.
He's a real hero.
We need more guys like this.
What does your country do? Nothing.
Our current system is failing to protect our citizens.
He's like the real deal.
He's playing with us.
What if everything they ever taught you was utter nonsense? We can change history.
Here we go. This film has to scare European leaders because, like it or not, it could become what some might term a how-to movie. And that's dangerous. But at the same time, it captures the extreme anger and frustration among European citizens about what has happened to their continent. The plot of Citizen Vigilante will be unfortunately very familiar to Europeans and the British. It begins with a mother being stabbed to death by migrant criminals in front of her son, and a man who learns about it is so enraged by the breakdown of law and order, decides to deliver vigilante justice to the criminals and the corrupt officials that protect them. It is not a film I am happy to see or that I think you should see. But guess what? Now that they've banned it, Germans especially are going to see it. I am interested in it as a journalist, as another sign that Europe and Britain, under the leadership of the left, because they're in charge, keep moving the continent towards sectarian violence and civil war. The director, Uwe Boll, is, of course, being crucified in Hollywood and having to say, no, he's not a Nazi because he created this movie. Tim Pool was exactly right, I think, when he said this movie is not about killing Muslim immigrants, it's about killing Muslim rapists. And if it had been about a woman vigilante killing white male rapist instead of a white man killing Muslim rapist, Hollywood would celebrate it, which is really sick. But that's Hollywood today. And perhaps this film reminded you of another classic from, 20 or more years ago. No, maybe 30 years ago. Starring Michael Douglas, Falling Down, about a white male who has had it and finally snaps.
Give us your briefcase. If everybody will stay out of my way.
Here, you want a briefcase? Here's my briefcase! There's the briefcase! Wait a minute, wait!
Then nobody will get hurt.
Warner Brothers presents.
Say, would you get off my golf course? I am!
The story of an everyday guy who refused.
Fine! Baby, whoa!
To take it one more day. In a Joel Schumacher film.
What are you doing to the street?
We're fixing it. What the hell does it look like?
See, I don't think anything's wrong with the street. I think you're just trying to justify your inflated budgets.
Well, I guess so.
I'll give you something to fix.
What are you... Hey, Charlie!
Okay, is it wrong for me to laugh at that? I feel like there's something wrong with me that I think that film is funny. I mean, it's so over the top. Of course, I don't think violence against people is funny, but I don't know. Just kind of the Michael Douglas character. I don't know. It makes me laugh. So things are reaching critical mass. This is a marker on the road to big problems ahead in European and British society. I want to show you some of my interview with Tim Stanley of the London Telegraph, what he fears is ahead for Britain. And I think it's the same situation across Western Europe. Tim, you wrote, I fear Britain is headed for open sectarian conflict, possibly war, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. What makes you think that?
I have worried about this for a long time, but it crystallized when I saw an interview with an academic at King's College London called Professor David Betts, who normally deals in conflict overseas. And his argument is this, that first of all, Britain displays many of the signs of being a failed state, such as economic decline, total loss of trust in the police, and a fractious and increasingly extreme politics. And into that, we've added in Britain a very explosive extra element, which is mass migration and multiculturalism. And when you have a country in decline and you add large numbers of new people into the mix, what you end up with is ethnic conflict over resources. And we're seeing that more and more. We've had riots here. We have had a terrible grooming gang scandal. We have the police trying to adopt policies to manage the situation rather than deliver what you might call colorblind justice. And Betts's argument is that we're moving towards a stage where we'll get some kind of rumbling conflict. He speaks of a civil war. And when you say that, you think of armies, North versus South, Cavaliers versus Roundheads. It's not like that. It's a question of an ongoing low-level violence, which we already have. In this country, we have Islamist terrorism. In this country, we've had rioting white working class people last year. And the state has been reacting by locking people up for what they tweet and what they say online. So not only do I think we are likely heading towards a sectarian conflict, I think we have the outlines, the basis for a low-level rumbling sectarian conflict already in the UK.
Which you've reminded me of the social cohesion laws, which as an outsider, and I had covered the protest by the English Defence League years ago and listened to their grievances. Was I wrong in thinking that by muting angry speech and crass speech and racist speech, that this was going to backfire someday because there was no outlet for people's grievances. They were essentially building a social pipe bomb, pressure. What is your opinion?
I think that's absolutely right. One element of this is that the mainstream political parties have not been willing to be a safety valve. They've not been prepared to offer a platform to angry views. And that adds to the sense that there is an elite consensus which excludes people. But when it comes to the police cracking down on speech, when it comes to the state passing laws to control speech, and that's very important. This isn't like America where it's people legislating from the bench. Every law regarding speech in this country comes from Parliament. Parliament is sovereign. So it's an elite consensus which has attempted to police speech. To do that is possibly the worst thing you could do. It's as if the state were actually inviting violence against itself. Because if you try and silence people, you confirm every conspiracy theory. It's one thing to feel angry about something. It makes it 10 times worse if you feel you are banned from speaking about it. And that is what the state has tried to do. Now, in some cases, like, for instance, when we had riots last year, it was entirely right that the state clamped down quickly and strongly because it wanted to send a message that we do not tolerate that in this country. I get that. But when you end up with people being arrested for those actions and getting 2-year-long sentences, whereas at the same time an overstretched police force has more or less said it will no longer police low-level shoplifting, theft from shops, again the impression is given that the state is more interested in policing the views of the white working class than it is in maintaining order in a colorblind way.
You're concerned about fascism. How would that look? How would that take shape?
This is the thing, is when I wrote this piece, unfortunately, partly because of its headline, some people thought my primary concern was migrant groups and sectarian conflict coming from outside the country. My greater concern actually is I increasingly regard as inevitable reaction within the country. And the experience of European history is that when Europeans overreact, they really overreact. And we are developing the basis for a reactionary politics based upon ethnicity, which could be really very bad for people. And that's what concerns me. I'm worried about very far right-wing people being elected and perhaps using some of the same tools that were established to control them being turned against people. Ultimately, my country is now a multicultural society. It has changed. Muslims are now part of this country. I believe they are integrated. They can be integrated. Britain can have a good relationship with Islam. But if this situation is not managed properly, if people's concerns are not addressed, if people don't feel they have a way of expressing themselves, I see us coming to a point where people are saying, we don't feel we can live with Islam. We don't feel we can live with Muslims. And when that happens, I regard that as tragic and very troubling. And given European history, it's not something I want to see tested.
Tim Stanley of the London Telegraph. What does this have to do with the film Citizen Vigilante? Well, that film is based basically on a rape gang scenario in Hamburg, Germany. Uwe Boll told the Telegraph, if you look at what happened in Hamburg, where the rapist walked free without any penalty, the coverage in the media was like, oh, the poor perpetrators. It's as if we're living in a completely insane and absurd political environment, which Europeans are, especially in Europe, where people have completely lost track. There is a huge difference between so-called hate speech and stabbing people in the neck, but facts don't matter anymore. So here we are, and I think terrible things are ahead for Europe and Britain, thanks to the rule of leftist governments. Maybe it will be better in the long run, but first, I think a social breakdown and violence are becoming inevitable. I told you in my first podcast that my gifting allows me to see future trends. I spoke at a Muslim terrorism conference in Paris at least 20 years ago, if not more. And I told them that when the backlash against Muslim immigrants comes, because it will come, I suggested that someday Christians might actually have to protect innocent Muslim immigrants from mob violence. And for some of you in the audience, there actually are innocent Muslims. I know the Quran is a problem and can turn any Muslim into a violent person, and that's a big issue. And that's also another program. But I was laughed at at that conference. But I fear we will reach a stage when all hell is going to break loose against Muslims and against judges and left-wing politicians that have covered up terrible crime. Please tell me your opinion in the comments section below. Please like and subscribe and share this if you would be so kind. And if you'd like to support this effort Buy Me a Coffee, as some already have, and I'm very grateful for that support. I would be very grateful for your support as well.